If you look at Ruto's government, it is full of fire drills. It is full of fire drills, which, to be fair, is not good. What is fire drill? Fire drill is a situation where firefighters do organize for a fire. They assimilate a burning situation, a burning emergency. Then they come up and put off the fire. Every now and then, firefighters and ambulance people are encouraged to assimilate an emergency so that those people who frequent that area, should the real emergency come, then they know what to do. That is what is called fire drill. You just do something. It even happens in a bomb drill and whatever. In such an emergency, we find that firefighters rush to the place to put off the fire. We also find that paramedicals come to carry the casualties who may have been injured in the fire or even bomb incidents, and so on. They do it several times so that at the day when the real emergency will come, then everybody knows what to do. That is why if you go to some institutions, you find that it is written fire point and so on and so forth. I know this because when I was a recruit, we had, I don't know whether Kiganjo still do the same, but squad 1 used to be the firefighters. Should there be a fire in the college, squad 1 will fight that fire. Squad 2 was the medical respondents. That is, should there be an emergency, before ambulances come, squad 2 handles that. So if should there be any incident, likely it never happened during my time. If there are to be any incident, squad 1 would be the firefighters and squad 2 would be the paramedics until the ambulances and the fire engines come from Nyeri town. But politically, Ruto's government, we are having a lot of fire drills. Why am I calling it fire drills? We are having a situation where somebody lights a fire in inverted commas, then they come and rush to do what? To put that fire out. But what I was taught and what I've experienced in life, some of these fires, you may underestimate them. Sometimes the fire becomes even worse than the actual fire. Even the fire drill may cause injury and deaths which were not intended. And you see, in fire drills, it is intended that to prepare people so that when the real emergency comes in, then people know how to react. But in this case, you find that in the fire drill, it so happens that people may be hurt or injured because of the drill more than even the real emergency itself. Why am I saying that Ruto's government is full of firefighters? There are instances that they are creating. There are instances that they are creating so as people to have panic, and then the government comes up and solves the problem. Who is to blame? First of all, who is the one who is lighting the fire? The person or persons lighting the fire could be anybody, but in the civil service. It could be as low as somebody in job group A and as high as the president himself. Anybody can start. But then, who is to blame? The person to blame is only one person, William Samoei Arap Ruto. Why am I saying William Samoei Arap Ruto? I'm saying so because of two things. One, if things, kwa Kiswahili wanasema mawimbi yakitulia, then Ruto or the Ruto type, I'm looking for the proper word to use. If mawimbi yakitulia, upepo umenyamaza, a person like Ruto is usually not seen. And you see he's somebody who is hyperactive. So when things go well and he's not noticed, I think he's not comfortable. He's hyperactive and he would really like situations where every day he is in a position to comment or even to act on situations. So that one he would, if he were to be a hands-off person like Mwai Kibaki, then we could blame the line minister or even the person. But you see, Ruto is everywhere, every time. So even if it is something that has been done by a very junior person, like a county commissioner, then the blame still goes to Ruto because of his hyperactiveness. Another reason why the buck stops with him, yes, I use the word the buck stops with him. Before Harry Truman became the president, whenever there was a problem in the government, everybody had an excuse of blaming the other. Let me take the example of the airport. The airport, you will find that the Ministry of Transport will blame the Ministry of Finance. Say they are the ones who paid out the money. The Ministry of Finance will blame the Attorney General. He gave the wrong advice. Everybody will blame everybody and nobody will come up. So everybody used to complain, whom do we blame should anything happen? During his campaign, the candidate, by then he was a candidate Harry Truman was approached by a prison warder, askari ya kamiti ya huko. He was approached by a prison warder who gave him a carving which was written, "The buck stops here." Then he told the president, the candidate, that once you are elected the president, you will be the one to be blamed for everything. And when Harry Truman took over the White House, he placed that carving on his table, which says, inside the Oval Office, he placed it and said, "The buck stops here." Any civil servant of any level who does anything wrong, the buck stops here. The blame game stops here. I am responsible for everything that is happening. Now, I want to give just two examples, just two of examples where the government of William Samoei Ruto creates a fire and then comes to solve it. And you know, the Stockholm syndrome. We now say, the government inatujali sisi, inatujali sisi. You see, the government is doing it in the wrong. I say it is wrong. You cannot create a problem for me. Come and solve it for me, then I praise you. If I am the one to blame, or if it is somebody else to blame, and then you solve it for me, then I'm supposed to praise you. But when you place a problem for me, then if you place a problem for me, and then you come and solve it, I'm not even supposed to thank you, sincerely. And I've said, and I'll give two examples. I know there are many. I'll give two examples of what uh, we are tunachezwa. The second one was Adani, but I'll start it because it is shorter. I'll start with it because it is shorter, then I'll come to the first one, which is longer. Adani was a done deal. I repeat again, Adani was a done deal. But somebody knew that for the deal to go through, Kenya, we have a lot of court cases and whatever. So the government came up and exposed Adani deal. They exposed the Adani deal so that whatever points we may have risen up, should that thing become public, we expose now. For example, I want to give two examples of Adani deal, which has now been exposed, and it has been exposed before they sign. You see, they were doing it so that should they sign, then the government is not taken, were it to be taken to court, it would have been taken to court because A, B, C, D. So these are the things which we have been tricked into exposing them in advance, so that we have been tricked to expose them in advance, because if they would have signed it, then they want to cover those things. In Adani deal, I don't know which point I'll start with. Let me start with this. There is what we call the disposal of government properties, or even private public partnership act, PPPA. It says in a layman's language that, for example, the GK that is used by any of the government departments, it is going to be sold or something, you have to get valuers. You have to get valuers to value the property. When they say they have valued the property, they come back and say, this is the value of the property. Then the property is placed on it is announced in three leading newspapers. Three leading newspapers, of course, Nation, Standard, and any other third one. A tender is sent out, and then people come, and tendering process is done, whatever, blah, 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 and then the thing is, but this thing was never done that. Adani was single sourced. So it was against the PPPA, Public Private Partnership Act. It was also against the Disposal of Public Properties Act. And then the other thing that Adani deal went against the law was to do with the Kenya Airport Authority Act. Kenya Airport Authority Act is given Kenya Airport Authority is given authority by the Kenya Airport Authority Act to run and manage all airports and all airstrips in Kenya. It is mandated to run all airports and all airstrips in Kenya. Now, Adani were only to take over Jomo Kenyatta alone. So it was going to be against the law. Adani was going to be against the law by running Jomo Kenyatta Airport alone with it. If they are going to hire, if you are going to run, if they are going to do the way, what do you call this, barabara inapita juu, overpass, if they were to manage and run the airport for 30 days, 30 weeks, 30 years, they were supposed to they were to go against the Kenya Airport Authority Act, because how can you run only one? Was it not? Don't we have to go back to Parliament? Don't we have to go back to Parliament and change the Kenya Airports Authority Act? Because the Kenya Airports Authority Act says Kenya Airport Authority runs all the airports and airstrips in Kenya. Now, if for 30 years, one entity will just run one, or if one entity has to run all the airports and airstrips, we have to go back to parliament and change the act, because the act will now amended act to read Kenya Airport Authority can run all airports and airstrips or can hire out such airports and airstrips as agree. Vitu kama hiyo kizungu mingi mingi hapa. So this thing was planned, and this thing so it was exposed. Let me say that from where I'm seated, it was not something that just by no, it is somebody who placed it in intelligence. In NIS we say, if you see something like a coincidence, it is not a coincidence. It was placed there to look like a coincidence. So what happens here is the deal was ready and the deal was to start, but then it was exposed. It was exposed so that anayepinga aonyeshe saa hii. I've gone to several marriages, and you find that, especially when I was a video man, you find that before the wedding, there is a meeting. The father-in-law, the girl's father is told, umelipwa mahari yote, umefanya nini? We don't want something huko kwa nini kanisani. We don't want when we are having usimame useme no, sitaki harusi iendelee because nilipromisiwa ng'ombe lakini 3 bado hazijaletwa ama nini. No, tunataka umalize sahi. That is also what happens with Adani. It was something which was being brought up so that mwenye kupinga apinge mapema, or even because if this thing was to go to it was to be signed, Kenyans would rush to court and it would take a long time. So the exposure now was not an exposure. Exposure was not an exposure by bad luck or anything. As I said, in special branch, we say any coincidence is not a coincidence. It was meant to be, and it was meant to look like a coincidence. So that is why Adani came out, so that if you have any issues, whatever, before they sign, it is, oh, so the law does, so we are supposed to amend the Kenya Airport Authority Act, whatever. We have to do this here. We have to announce it in the 3 newspapers. Whatever. It was a shortcut that was being done. Now we have done with a done deal, which is a done deal. We now come to university education. University education, we have been having problems for several years, if not decades. We have been having problems where universities, public universities, even private universities, let me just say, universities have been conning the government. Universities have been conning the governments year in, year out. So this new system was brought about to reduce the money that the universities are stealing from the government. I'll come up with a hypothetical calculation that will make you understand. So when this thing came up, it was to deny those university administrators from stealing from the government. And it worked well. It worked well. Last year, people complained. People said, with all seriousness and genuineness, some degrees take up to 6 years. Now, if the school fees for a student, this is 2024, somebody taking a 6-year course means that he or she will complain, that is medical. If somebody is taking a 6-year degree course in medical, if someone is taking a degree in medical for 6 years, it means that he or she will graduate in 2030. So if the government, if the universities have been conning the government, this thing worked well. But people said If the degree, let's say medical, 2024, the medical degree is worth $500,000 per academic year. So somebody said, now if by the time this student reaches sixth form, life would be different. The fees would not be the same. I remember very well the government coming out saying that those who joined last year, because this system started last year, those who joined last year would continue with that fee structure all the way up to graduation. But if maisha yakipanda and there is need if the maisha yakipanda and there is need to increase the university fees, then those joining, let's say it reaches 2025 or even 2026, and the universities cannot afford at that price, then whoever is joining as a first year, then he or she will pay the new fees. That is what was said. But what happened? What happened was the university took, you see, last year there were group 1, 2, band 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Last year there were band 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So you find, I have a student, I'll talk about him. I have a student I know. He's called Raphael Saya. Raphael Saya, I'll tell you his story. But last year, he joined last year, and this year is a sophomore. Sophomore kwa nyinyi wale kizungu ni second year. So he joined last year, and he was placed in band 3. He was placed in band 3, which means that he was to pay 7%. 7%. Now, the degree he's taking is a 300,000 shillings per year. So 7%, that is 21,000. He cleared that last year. I'll tell you about Raphael Saya later, but for the time being, let me just say how it happened. Then this year, he goes to the university. He leaves his home, goes to the university, and then when he checks with the HELB, he gets a letter, he gets an email from HELB telling him that we are moving you from 7% to 30%. And they are justifying this by saying the government has come up and found that last year they took a lot of students. This year they're taking another lot equal to that number. And the money that the parliament has allocated the university cannot sustain the two classes when he is paying 7%, which is 21,000. He has been taken to 30%, which is 73,000 shillings. Now, this is a student who goes to the university and then goes to the HEF, Higher Education Fund portal, and he is told when he's at the cyber that from today on, he's given a 5 minutes notice, that from today on, your school fees is no longer 21,000. Your school fees is going to be 73,000 starting from today. And the other thing that is funny, these students discuss among themselves. They even, these things are not classified or anything. They go to the cybers together, not even cybers. Even their laptops within the universities, I think they get free Wi-Fi. So they did their own calculation and found out last year there were 4 branches. Band 1 and band 2 household was 7%. Then there was a band. Then there was one band that no student paid anything. This is very, I don't know kizungu gani wanatumia hapa, but this one they said vulnerable, very vulnerable, needy, very needy, whatever language they use. But then there were two groups. One group, two groups were paying 7% household. Those were needy and very needy. But the difference here is that of the 93% that the government was paying, if you look at the scholarship and loans, you'll find that very needy were given more scholarship but less loan, and vice versa for the needy. So that you find both added to 93%, both added to 93%, and both added to 93%. So household used to pay 7%, which is 21,000. And then there is a band which was, for example, a child is an orphan, or the student is living with disability, or the student's parent is living with a disability, or such both, that you can find a child is living with a disability and also his or her parents are also living with the disability. This was what was called full sponsorship. Full sponsorship. They pay not a single cent. And when they graduate, the government will not demand even anything from them. You know the funny thing? All the four groups were collapsed. No student in year one and no student in year two has been placed in the system that they were placed last year. I almost said yesterday. 5 new groups have been introduced. All of them, with no exception, they have been placed in band 4 and 5. Why am I talking about band 4 and band 5? Band 4 is what was band 4 last year, whereby students were, let's say, were from well-off families. Well-off families. And what do I mean by well-off families? Well-off families, a parent is supposed to be earning 120,000 shillings per month. Now, every student, first year and second year, remember, the very, very same government had said that because they were challenged, there is economist. You see, there is economist in the field, and then there is the economist in the office, in the government. The economist in the government, you can see, if you want to know about the economist in the government, and if you want to know the economist out there, look at Mr. Ndi. 2 pictures before he was appointed the government economist and what he is now. That is how the economists there are. But the economists in the field said, supposing the economy changes, the universities may not afford that fees. It has to be added. And the government said, no, 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 no. For example, if today the government had done good economics and found that school fees is supposed to be increased, they had themselves promised that the 2023 class will continue that way. So the 2023 would have continued that way. 2024 would have been the ones only to be affected by this. But what happened? Even those who were one of the last year were affected. That is what they were doing. And that is how they are spoiling. And what will that result in? It will result in, before I say what it will result in, kindly go to your YouTube. Look at, just, I nearly used the word Google. Just go to YouTube and type several universities which were rioting. Yeah, just type, go to YouTube and type students demonstrating against the new university funding. Just to go and check that. And look at the way the students who are on the road. Do they look like their parents earn 120 per month? Now that is the, the smallest they can. And then there's a question I want to ask. A parent was assessed by this computer. They're saying, we have come up with good models which have investigated and found whatever ABCD. Can you tell me which computer said that baba ya Raphael Saya was so poor that he was supposed to pay 21,000? And then can you tell me, because I know that family very well, I'll tell you about the boy. Personally, since I know the family, I don't see any economic difference that he has undergone since the son joined the university. I've not seen. But then he has been removed from needy case after he has been placed in a band that shows that his father earns 120,000 shillings. I'm ready to produce evidence if called upon. Because if he's earning that amount, he must be paying taxes, isn't it? I want the Ministry of Finance to show any changes, because the father is unemployed. Any changes in lifestyle, if at all anything, the father has moved from a house that he's now staying in a house that is paying 2/3 of what he was paying before, when the boy was in secondary school. So you'll find that band 1, 2, and 3, no student has come up to own up that he or she has been placed in that band. It has been left vacant. So why cheat us that we have 5 bands? Why don't you tell us that we have only 2 bands, band 4 and band 5? Why cheat? Or is it, as I said, firefighting? You have lit a fire, you want to bring excitement among the people. When you bring excitement among people, and then you come out and say, oh, no, 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 no. Second year, sophomores, pay what you paid last year. First year, this is what we are doing, so that people, you can even use that for the campaign, isn't it? You remember October 2024, we came out and overruled the higher education fund and so on and so on and so on. That is bad. Sincerely, hurting me and then carrying me to the hospital, you are not. I cannot say thank you. I can only say thank you if someone else hurt me and you took me to the hospital. But taking me to the hospital for an injury that you caused, no. So please keep it to yourself. Lastly, as I finish off, I want to talk about. Oh, it's not last, because I'll talk about Raphael Sai. Uh, I wanted to say that this funding model is good, because the universities used to steal. The university used to steal from the government, and the university would come out every year and say the government has 5 billion debts for us, whereas the universities were stealing from the government. How are they stealing? Let us take this thing that this university, can I call it JI-TENGE University? Yeah, JI-TENGE University has been allocated 100 students. JI-TENGE University has been allocated 100 students, and when they have been allocated 100 students, you'll find that on the reporting day, only 95 will report. 95%. 5% would not report. Why? I'll tell you one of the reasons is like the one of Raphael Saya that I'll say after I finish. And the second reason is we have some students who were called to the university, but they opted to go to MTC, yes, to train as nurses. Somebody gets a B, then he or she cannot undertake a degree in nursing. So he or she is told to take another degree, says, no, I'd rather go to MTC, get a diploma in nursing, diploma with my B. I can still come back and get a degree in nursing. So there are those ones who go to middle level colleges. There are those like Raphael Saya, who was about to join the military as a cadet officer. Then there are whatever. So, and then there is also the act of God, because from the time they start their exams to the time that they were called to the universities, there are those who cannot report because of they have been called by the maker. There are those who are from poor families, so they feel they continuing studying, and they have younger siblings, so they think that they should work and assist the parents raise the other young siblings. There are very many reasons. There are others who would not just want to go to class. So let's say 95% report. Then when 95% report, second year, something like 5% would somehow not complete the first year. If you Google, around 3 months ago, uh, just ask the university student found hanging in his rented room. You'll find there is something like that died. Then there is the one who died naturally. Then there is whatever. And then there is also those who did not pass the exams or were expelled because of discipline or criminal activities. So naturally, you don't expect all those who reported to go to the second year. So we can estimate that uh, those who are called were 100%. Those who reported were 95%. And those who went to second year sophomore class were 90%. And then from the second year to third year, there are those also, because of the reasons given above, we take another 5% don't go to third year. So that year they go 85. And then in graduation, let us assume that the students who were called, they were called 100%, 95 reported, 90 went to second year, 85 went to third year, and 80% graduated. This one would mean that the university, in the first year, the government was paying for 5% of the students who never even reported to the university, Then the second year, because first year they were 95%, so 5%, the government is paying the universities, but the universities are not teaching those students. Then the second year, we said they are 90%, and if they are 90%, it means that in the second year, students, the government is paying for 10%, and this government is paying for 10%, and the university is just eating that money. Third year, 15%, and fourth year, which is the graduating year, is 20%. If you add 5 plus 10 plus 15 plus 20, you'll get 50 students. 50 students were ghost students. 50 students were ghost students in that university. Meaning, since they were called 100, what do we call 100 100%, then it means that half of them, 50 students, the government would just get like, it's just like, okay, if you accumulate 5, whatever, it totals up to 50% of 1 year. 50% of 1 year has been given to the university for no money. So what happens is that each year coming, every year coming, a student, once a student has reported to the university, he goes to the HELB portal and reports that he is starting the second year. If he doesn't report, then the HELB, if he doesn't report, HELB will not send money to that university. We have some students, I've just said those students who, because of 1, 2, or 3 reasons, they have stopped coming to. You can see as the years go on, the number goes on reducing. I've given that example. But then there is one unlikely case where the student goes there for second, third, or even final year, and that student who goes there for second, third, or even final year student, the parents become rich, so they decide to pay, or the student, the church, or whatever, may decide to offer him or her full scholarship. They may offer him or her full scholarship, and so he or she will not need the HELB loan. But you find that so that student will not go back to apply for HELB. You get me? So that is how the government blocked the loopholes of universities stealing from students. Now, finally, let me give you the story of Raphael Saya. Raphael Saya got a B plus, and we sat down, me, his parents, and him, and we agreed that he joins the military as a cadet officer. Of course, as a former member of the inspectorate of the police, I know what is required as far as medical is concerned. They check the eyesight, they check blood pressure, they check ABCD. So we took the boy to a private hospital. He was checked for all those things, and we knew that he did not have an underlying situation. Then what happened was he was called to the university. When he was called to the university, he he he, he asked me for my opinion. He said, "But why don't I go to the university? Because the degree that he was being called for is very important to the Navy, Kenya Navy." So he said, "Why can't I go and take that degree and join the military? That one will also increase my marketability." I also made inquiries with the military people, and I was told there are 2 types of cadet. There is cadet officer and cadet officer graduate. So when he goes for that and he goes for a degree that is related to the military, that is Kenya Navy, then he stands a better chance, even a better salary. I was told that upon joining, he'll be the same rank with his colleagues whom he's completing the course with, but he will be given several increments. Several increments. In the police, we have 20 steps. That is, if you're on the same rank for 20 years, you get the highest salary of that. So, which is added every year for 20 years. So what happened? What happened was he was assured of that, and then he joined the university. And what happens? He goes for the second year, and he's told that no, you will not pay the 21,000. I know the parents, even raising the 21,000 was a problem. You are now going to raise 73,000. Then, of course, when he was contemplating stopping his education, remember, he will have to go back now to start the military thing again, having studied for 1 year. When he started contemplating that, that is when the Minister for Education said he's going to set up. Yes, let us agree. Life has gone up, life has done whatever. But Don't you think that by so doing, let us be realistic. Yes, the government cannot afford that, whatever. But if it has to go for market prices, then you will get a lot of layouts. What is the use? Placing things at the market price, and then you get a fraction of the students, or looking for money elsewhere and then continue with those students the way you are, and prepare the next year's lot to be ready with the new university levies. But as I started and I said, one thing I've noticed in the Ruto government is the ability to create a situation and then you come out and be seen to be the one solving that. It is not good. It is not fair. Please stop it. Uh, in the case of Raphael Sayers, I've said last year he paid 21. This year is being told to pay 75. Now that is 30%. Why don't you change it this way? Because first of all, you promised. There are some students who forwent professions, employments or whatever. They forwent employment simply because you had started a very good whatever. And if you must increase the prices, the fees, why don't you do this? Why don't you say that first year you paid 7%, second year you pay 10%, third year you pay 15%, and fourth year you pay 20%? Thank you.